You're ready.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. This is the meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the town of Newcastle. Today is November 17th, 2021.
오늘 11월 17일 미팅하는 거예요. 네, 뉴캐슬 보딩에서.
Annie, I'm going to mute you until it's time for you to talk, okay?
All right.
Oh, second.
Yes, go ahead, Tony.
Okay. First case is Mount Kisco Country Club. Discussion and adoption of final resolution on application.
So Eric, you have drafted resolution for the board.
Yes, we prepared a resolution for the board's consideration. I believe you have it tonight. And we are ready to proceed, or the board, if the board doesn't have any further questions. I believe the public hearing was closed at the last meeting, so you can proceed to consider the adoption of the resolution.
So I would move that the board adopt the resolution as drafted by council for the Mount Kisco Country Club.
Which approves the amendment to the special use permit.
I'll second that.
So we need somebody to call the roll. I don't know who's acting as secretary.
I will do the roll. Chairman Kenneth Cooper,
Yay?
Anthony Giardina,
Aye.
Harvey Bonaparte, please.
Aye.
Michael Nolan,
Aye.
Howard Dubs.
Aye.
Thank you.
So the resolution carries.
Good. Next, we have James and Kathy Mish.
Thank you, board.
My name is Dennis Cucciello. I'm representing Mr. Nish for the balance of the location of his emergency generator.
I can't hear that gentleman.
Pardon me, sir? Mr. Nish applied for a variance back in 2013.
Mr. Cuccinella, it's very hard to hear you.
I don't know what I can do to make my voice louder. Just talk louder? Is that better?
That is better, yes.
Okay, great. As I was saying, Mr. Nish applied for a variance in 2013 and received the variance. He put the project off for a while, and then it just kind of fell by the wayside. So he came back to us last year. He said he wanted to get the generator started. We weren't sure what actually had to happen at that point in time. I was just brought on last year, so kind of new with Mr. Nish's project. But he is requesting the same variance that we got in 2013 for the emergency generator. Which was approved, yes.
Right. Could you review for us how the location of the generator was chosen?
Yes, my name is Jim Lanza. I'm the electrician on the job. What Mr. Nish wanted to do is he just wanted to keep it away from the master bedroom, which was on the same side of the house that the generator was placed. So that was the reason we wanted to just push it out to the side. And it's closer to the heater tank, which is already in that location. It's presently there. It feeds the gas for the pool. So we were trying to just kind of incorporate everything into the same area.
Could you describe for us the screening that exists between the generator and the neighboring property?
There is I think a 4 or 5 foot fence that is screened very well with evergreens and greenery on the whole side yard. He's got a lot of vegetation, trees. It is very well screened.
Has this been discussed with the closest neighbor?
The letters were sent out to everyone. I assume Mr. Nish spoke with his neighbor, but I can't answer that for anybody.
And the generator is powered by what?
Propane?
Propane? Is it an above ground tank?
In-ground tank?
In ground. What would the hardship be if the generator came closer to the home and you didn't require as much of a variance, as great a variance?
Presently, there is really no screening of any type on that side of the house. The screening starts really at the property line, and it would be directly below his master bedroom.
Any other questions by the board?
No, I just want to verify that this application had been before us previously and has been approved. And as long as there's no changes to what was originally applied for, I think that's what the applicant had just stated. There should not be a problem here.
On November 25th, 2013, the board passed a resolution in this regard for the same variance, 12 feet. 48-foot variance to set the generator at 12-foot distance.
So, Tom, can we use that same resolution?
Eric, do you have any concerns?
No, I think you could, I think based upon the, I mean, I can read the determination, and if you agree with it, you could adopt that. The motion was made and the board found, although it is a fairly large piece of property, the house is located in such a way that it is very close to the setback lines. 2, due to location of the fuel tanks and the electrical system, it is the most reasonable location for the generator. 3, while this is a substantial variance, the generator will be placed in a location near the town-owned property where no neighbors will be impacted. I'm assuming it's still in the same location. 4, there have been no neighbors who have appeared or written in opposition. 5, the granting of the variance will not have a physical impact on the environment or the surrounding areas. 6, although this may be a self-created hardship in that there may have been other locations for the generator, the house is located so close to the setbacks that placement of the generator would need some type of variance in any location. And 7, the variance sought is the most reasonable that could be requested. So as long as it's in the same exact location, you could use those determinations.
Pam, would you just confirm that there's no one on YouTube or in a queue that wishes to speak to this application?
Let me check.
Thank you.
No one has their hand raised on this matter.
Okay, I move that we therefore close the public hearing.
Well, second,
Cooper in favor.
Giardina in favor.
Bonaparte in favor.
Tubbs in favor.
Nolan in favor.
We thought it'd make it easier on you, Tom.
Sounds good, thank you.
I move that we approve this application. Council has read through the 2013 justification for that. There are no neighbors who have spoken in opposition, and for these reasons, I think we should adopt it. You'll have 6 months to start, 1 year to complete the application. Tom, do you want to as-built?
Yes, please.
There'll be an as-built survey required.
Yes, sir.
I'll second.
Cooper in favor.
Giardina in favor.
Bonaparte in favor.
Tubbs in favor.
Nolan in favor.
Thank you. You have your variance.
Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies.
Welcome.
Thank you.
C&Y Bodywork is next.
Who is it Annie that is?
Yes, yes, I'm the
Maybe this-
interpreter. Yeah, let's say.
Okay. Could you explain your application and why you've come to see us this evening?
She applied CNY Relax Body Work, and she's the owner of the body shop. And this meeting is because she applied for the special permit renew, and I'm Annie interpreting. And if you have any question, you can ask her.
This is just a renewal of a special permit?
Yes. 신청 그냥 리뉴하는 거 맞죠? Special
3년에 한
permit.
번, 3년에 한 번.
Every 3 years.
Tom, have you had a chance to renew all the, review all the submissions?
Yes, I have, sir, and everything is current.
Thank you.
Was the required renewal done in 2018?
Yes, it was.
Okay,
Yeah, there was a renewal in 2015 and 2018.
good.
So as long as nothing has been modified or changed, the board could, or if you have any, unless you have any questions for the applicant, Ms. Magano, who's on the meeting, can, has the resolutions from the prior meeting that you could use, so.
Right, so as long as the plans have not changed, all the documents have remained the same, there's been no complaints. In 2018, it was renewed, finding that, there was no changes to the plans, and referral was not required at that time. So really, nothing's changed.
The things that have changed would be the insurance has been updated. It's I don't know if it's a new policy, but it's there are things that had to be submitted again in a renewed fashion. So maybe some things have changed. I think for those purposes, you might want to just check on whether you could just do a blanket approval or just whether you have to mention these specific items.
In the previous resolution, it didn't identify each item that was required.
Okay.
It just mentioned if there was any changes.
Mhm. All right. Whatever you
And I
think.
didn't see anything about insurance in there, which, like you said, would change. I think they're really looking to see if there was any change to the plans or the use, and maybe if there's any new licenses.
Okay.
Just for the public, Ms. Magana is an associate with Keenan Bean, and she's working with me as a counsel for the board.
Pam, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application?
No one has their hand raised at this time, no.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions by the board? I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Cooper in favor?
Jardine in
Bonaparte.
favor.
Bonaparte in favor.
Dubs in favor.
Noel in favor.
Who'd like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to renew the special permit for CNY Bodywork located at 82 Millwood Road, Millwood, New York, based upon their submission to the building department that everything is in order, insurance-wise and otherwise. There's been no changes to the property, no changes to the hours, and therefore I move that the special permit be renewed for another 3 years.
I'll second.
Cooper in favor?
Jardine in favor.
Bonaparte in favor.
Dubs in favor.
Noel in favor.
Thank you. You have your renewal. Good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Homes and Homes LLC is next.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye.
All right, I'm on, yes.
Sir,
Good evening. Chairman Cooper, can I start with my,
Yes, you may.
reminding all of us that that I'm asking initially for your board to revise, reverse, or interpret the decision of the building inspectors in notice of denial that said that we're going to need a use, an area variance, no, a use variance in order to relocate a residential use in a building that's now at 101 King Street in Chappaqua. And I'd like to argue that the guiding factor in New York State case law is whether the use is permitted on the subject property. And if it is, and clearly residential is a permitted principal use in the business district, then the variance to relax zoning requirements should be classified as an area variance. I guess our issues here is it's not a use variance since it's already a permitted use. It's more of an area variance that we need a relaxed zoning review of. And so we're asking for an area variance to locate the 3 apartments at a different level, not at the Main Street level, but and not above the Main Street level, but basically below the Main Street level. And then it is a permitted principal use, but your authorization would help us do other things on the property, like reduce the amount of pavement, reduce the intensity, definitely not change the character of the neighborhood. Matter of fact, we might even add to the vitality of the town, which is the goal of our Hamlet's comprehensive plan. In addition, it does all the other things that are required for any residential building, that is storage and proper fire protection and relocating the entryways. But again, this is all to be looked at and with your authorization, reviewed as to its impact on the community and the neighborhood. Again, I'm requesting an area variance to move the use from the 2nd floor down to the lower floor, 1 foot below grade level or street level. I have all the drawings and all the particulars if we want to go that far, but can we establish that what kind of variance I'm seeking from your point of view? I'm finished.
So Chuck, how do you address the issue of units that start below grade and continue above grade? Isn't that, doesn't that fly in the face of what the regulation calls for as it relates to non-residential uses and the street level?
Well, actually, both non-residential and residential are permitted uses. Technically, this is technical as far as I'm concerned. The legal could help me with this, but if it's a use variance, I would say that the permitted use could be with your authorization on any floor of that building. But now, in particular, on this particular property, we are putting the dwelling units at the lower level. Yes, I do go up a set of stairs to a sleeping area, but the actual dwelling, the actual cooking, the actual definition of dwelling is on the 1st floor, period. Locating the bedrooms in the loft portion, I don't see how that would connect to the street in any way at all. There's no way to get to that part of the apartment. The main definition of the apartment is at the 1st floor, and that happens to be 10 feet below street level. And under your authorization, allowing it in the building at that level or anywhere in that building is still under your area variance determination. And at least that's how I read it.
Are
I
you
think the
saying
key
that
here,
all of
I
the
don't,
units are below 10 feet below street level?
there are 3 units, all cooking and well, I guess you determine a dwelling unit by the fact that it has a stove. You know, that becomes a dwelling unit. I would say the beginnings, all dwelling units are on the first floor. 2 of the dwelling units have a loft that goes above their first floor, which is 10 feet below grade. And I think Chairman Cooper was pointing out that maybe the second floor of those dwellings at the back, and maybe I should open that drawing up and talk about it. May I do that? May I show you that? Is
Yes, you may.
that all right? Okay, I'll
Yes.
try to share my screen. Come on, any day now. Here we go. Just to refresh everybody's view, this is the property that we're talking about, 101 King Street. It's a joint use property with 4 buildings on it. This is the dentist, Dr. I don't know his name, but anyway, that's the dentist office. This is the real estate office that is in question. And then this is an apartment building in the back, and that's a 3-story apartment building. But what I want to point out and to answer the question was, all apartments start at this level, and I will laser. All apartments start at this level, the 10 foot below street level. We're on the side of a hill, and as the property goes down, you have to go down these stairs to get it to the lower level of this building. And here's what happens. This is unit number 2. It has an entrance on the lower level, and it has a living room and a kitchen on this level. It does have a bedroom above, and that bedroom is at, or almost at, believe it or not, it's a few, it's like 4 or 5 inches lower than the street level, but because there's a little ramp as these 2 buildings connect. But this unit has the bathroom and the bedroom in it. Not a kitchen unit, not a dwelling unit. It's not considered, a unit. It's a part of a unit that starts down here. And let me go to the next slide to see if there's anything there to show. Yeah, here's another picture of this area is where you enter. And one of the key factors of an apartment in a business district dwelling or building is that it needs a separate entrance. And all entry to this whole thing is down here at the lowest level. You have to go down these steps to get into the lower level. It's basement level, basically, of the main building. So again, to answer the question, how do I justify this being a 2-story building? Does this 2nd story equal street level? Yeah, it does, but it's not as a dwelling unit, it's as a piece of a dwelling unit. Let's say the area variance would include a 2nd level of this lower level apartment. And finally, I just want to go over that by including, oh, here it is. Here's a picture of this. Here's street level. This is the main office. And this is where the upper level, the bedrooms connect to the building, but there's no connection. It's a solid wall, and it's, like I said, a few inches difference between this floor and this floor. But technically, it's all on the same level, but blocked off. There's no connection whatsoever. What was a connection is gone, and these 2 units become subject or supplementary to the 2 units below it. The apartment in the basement is all 1 floor, and that is all underneath the existing street level building.
So what I'm hearing is that there is only 1 unit that is totally below
Correct.
street level.
Yes,
The
that's
others
unit
are
number.
mixed bag.
Unit number 1 is totally below. It's in the basement of a building. And
The entire unit.
Yeah, the entire unit.
And the other units are both.
They start in the
above
basement.
and below, at street level, and a portion of them are below.
No, they start at below. They start at the same level as the basement. They're in the basement. Right now, they're in the basement of this building.
What, are there portions of those units that are not in the basement?
No, they're all at basement level, 10 foot below grade. First, all entries, all living, all kitchens, all living are at the basement level. And then these two back here have a second level where the bedroom is.
So if it's a second level where the bedroom is, then what you're saying is that they're not all at, every portion of the unit is not.
Correct. It is 9 feet higher than the basement, but yes, it's a call it a loft or a duplex that starts at 10 feet below grade. And the second level is where the sleeping portion of it is.
But that would be at street level.
Oh, yes, it is, but it's not the entry of the unit.
It doesn't matter that it's not the entry. We're dealing with language in the code.
Well, that's the other thing about the code. The code says that you want an apartment above street level. I am putting an apartment below street level. What's different here is that the apartment below street level has a loft in it. And it's not, there's no entry to this apartment at street level. There's no exit of this apartment at street level. It just happens to be above a minus 10 foot below street level dwelling unit.
You know, Chuck, many members of the board, myself included, have had to put aside our beliefs and our interest in seeing you achieve what you'd like to achieve. We've consulted with counsel, and in this case, any use of a property in the BR district for a residential apartment that is not above the street level in a building used for non-residential purposes is a prohibited use of the land. And the building inspector's denial is supported by town law. Use variance shall mean the authorization by the Zoning Board of Appeals for the use of the land for a purpose which is otherwise not allowed or is prohibited by the applicable zoning regulations. And it's our belief that it might be in your best interest to withdraw the application and consider approaching the new town board about a legislative change that would allow us to grant you the relief that you're looking for.
Or I don't even think the board would need to grant relief then if there was a legislative change, as long as he.
Correct, yes, right, you're right.
It would be a very simple legislative change, a few words in the statute.
Gentlemen, what I don't understand and what I'm hearing is that there is, these units are permitted in the district. And if it is permitted, so you can deny it as a use variance, please. But don't send me off to some legislative nowhere land. This is a permitted use in the district. It's a permitted principal use apartments. The fact that
the problem is, if you look at the provision of the code, Mr. Napoli, that creates this, it's part of the use regulations, not part of the bulk rate. There is a separate bulk regulation that states that there is a, that sets forth the dimensional and physical requirements. The legislature has determined that to be a permitted use, you have to be above street level. That's a legislative determination in the code. So I don't see,
I really want to stick with the fact that it's not a use variance to relocate this particular use, the residential use, via an area variance at a different location, a different physical place in the property, in the building that is a permitted principal use to begin with. We are simply asking for the location by your board to allow the area of these apartments to be in a different place.
Right,
That is
anywhere on the property.
It's an area variance within the property of a principal permitted use. I'm not asking for something that's not allowed here. I'm not
Chuck,
asking.
Chuck, can I just interject right here?
Yeah.
If we were talking about just that one apartment that's totally below street level and has no presence above street level, you might be able to convince us that it's an area variance. But because the other two apartments extend above the street level, and the code explicitly states that they have to be away from, the residential use has to be separated by a level. Unfortunately, they didn't say up or down, which is creating a problem for everybody.
Well, that's what we're talking, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you,
if they-
Tony.
by saying they want it above the commercial use, means that they don't want the residential use to be at the street. Now, you want to have it below, and I think that it's a great idea if you could work it, but to have part of it at street level creates a problem for me. I don't know about the rest of the board. Creates a problem for me that we're countermanding what the town's original intent was, which was to keep business use at street level and other uses above the street level, or let's not use above, let's use away from street level. So what we have here is a law that was written with a few words missing. And the few words missing should have been above or below street level. And if you could get the town board to do that for you, it would save us.
Well, yeah, thank you, Tony.
As well.
But Tony, here it is. I mean, here's the deal. It's a area variance of a permitted principal use in a building in the business retail district. And it doesn't say, I mean, by the way, it does say above street level, right? But it doesn't matter. Your board has the authorization to say, well, no, that could be at street level because it's a permitted principal use in the building. You can, by looking at all of the factors, determine that putting residential on the first floor is even a reasonable thing.
No, I don't see it, Chuck. I don't see it that way. I see our board being able to make modifications to the code for an apartment that's above street level if for some reason it doesn't meet the square footage that the town wants to see, or doesn't meet some other requirements. But the town explicitly is trying to keep residential use away from street level in this particular zone. And in that case, it's a use variance. If it were below street level totally, and you needed some modifications to your layout because you were short a couple of inches here or there, or didn't meet some other requirements, then that would, in my opinion, would be an area variance, yes. But because you have two units that do encroach onto the street level, that to me, that's a problem. I don't know how I would pass that. As an area variance.
But Tony, it's really not. It's really a piece of the unit. It's almost like if there was. It was almost as if there was a loft, and the loft had a two-story feeling to it. I mean, it's not exactly like it's another entrance. There's not another apartment there. It's not an apartment at street level.
No, Chuck, it is residential use, whether it's a separate apartment or whether it's part of an existing apartment or part of a planned apartment that's partially below street level. It's still residential use at street level in that particular part of the apartment, and
that's the area. But Tony, that's the area variance I'm seeking. That little piece.
Oh, you're seeking you want to use that particular spot in a manner to which the code forbids. The code forbids that use at that particular spot. It doesn't forbid you to have apartments, but it forbids the apartments to be at that particular spot on the property.
Well,
we have to careful that we don't set a precedent here that's going to just make a big problem for everybody else on King Street and everybody else in town. So we need to have the word. To me, the wording is not clear. It's not clearly worded for the situation that we're dealing with. And I don't want to tell you what to do or anything in after the fact or whatever, but it would be better for all concerned if the code was more clear on where and how these uses have to be. And I think trying to get the town board to clarify their wording is a worthy cause.
Yeah, well, that's the zoning board's job, the way I see it, to interpret the code and look at the impacts and the goods and the bads. And I mean, these apartments are not at street level.
Chuck?
Yes, sir.
Chuck, hi. This is Ted Holmes. I'm the son of the owner, Bill Holmes, who I think is also on. Just to kind of mention, what bearing does it have on the board's decision when you have a building next door, the Lipari's dentist office, that has essentially the same layout and same use with their apartments related to that dentist office as we're asking for? Does that have any bearing on this?
Actually, it's quite a bit different, Ted. Let me explain. And Tony brought up the point that these units are totally underneath the building. These units under here, they're totally underneath the building.
Well, so are Lipari's units.
They're totally underneath the building.
So are Lipari's units. They're the same setup.
Same setup, but it's underneath the entire building. What we're talking about here is this top part that has the bedrooms in it. Right, Tony?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, one question about those other buildings, were they granted an area variance to have those apartments underneath them?
We have no idea how
Right,
that
so
happened.
that's another question that needs to be answered. We don't know if how those apartments got there or when they got, whether they were there before this provision was adopted.
Yeah, well, I'm going to just go to one picture over here. We're going to have a little bit of trouble. Look at all of these that have lower level apartments already. It's almost
right,
like,
which is why the town board should be, if they're already there, the town board should be willing to grant that to make that change, which is expressly prohibited under the code. That's I think what the board is saying.
And I have to agree that they probably, and who knows, but they all under an area variance could be approved. I mean, this whole idea of above street level is kind of like, well, up to your board to determine whether these homes can be turned into houses again or they have to stay retail forever. I mean, these were original residences and they all look like residences, and somebody turned them into offices or shops. But again, I think it's your board. Your board has to take on the challenge of evaluating each one and saying, wait a second, are these impacts? Are you making? By the way, I don't know about this law being law when it says above street level. I mean, I'm not asking for above street level, but I sure am asking for an area variance of this particular area down on, how can I point it out?
No, what's before the board tonight is an interpretation of the building inspector's determination that a use variance is required to have the residential uses in a non-residential building either at or below street level. That's what's before the board right now.
Okay. And at or above street level technically is because it's a permitted use, is in the category of an area variance. And it doesn't go against the law if you decide to vary that law. That's what you're here for, varying it. It's really quite simple. It's a permitted principal use. Where I'm putting it needs to be is the interpretation I need and the authorization by you.
There's nothing simple about your application.
Well, that's kind of what Tom always says about my applications. I mean, I've been asking for the mother of all variances before you a lot of times. This one is pretty clear. It's a permitted principal use. And how it's used in the building is up to you. And yeah, okay, I'm not asking to put this thing on or at street level. I'm asking, and it's your job. Don't pawn it off on the town. You have the power. You have New York state law. You have New York case law behind you that says a principal permitted use in the district is determined to be changed or altered, physical or dimensionally, by an area variance. That's your job.
Well, that's not 100% true all the time, Chuck. I mean, there are cases like if you have a single family district, right? You have one house on a lot. That's a permitted principal use. You can't have a second one family house on that lot by an area variance. So it's not.
No, it would have to be a use variance.
Right.
And then you'd have to prove all of the standards.
Right.
Now, I'm not
So it's
talking
the-
about that. I'm talking about pure area variance. I cannot put a bowling alley on this property. Well, yes, I could actually, because it's permitted use. I couldn't put a non-permitted use on this property unless I went through a use variance. And I'm not doing that. I'm looking for an area variance. Simple. Permitted use, principal building, permitted use, area variance to locate that apartment in the back of that building. It's that simple. And it's all about area variances and the physical dimensions of the building and property.
The code states the principal permitted use is an apartment above street level. That's what the code states. That's the permitted principal use, above street level.
Well, no. Generally speaking, it says the guiding factor is whether the underlying use is permitted on the property. And this is. And if it is, then a variance to relax the zoning requirements should be classified as an area variance. Now, how it's done, I don't know, but technically speaking, I think we should be looking at this thing as an area variance first, and then determining what's good or what's bad about it. This is not a use variance. Definitely not a use variance. Definitely not a use variance. I mean, Eric, I mean, I know planning and everybody else wants to, somebody invented apartments on top of stores. I think you guys might have the right idea to talk to the new town board and start talking about, where apartments should be located. Me personally, I'll wait for that. But for now, we have a principal permitted use on a property in the district, and if it's permitted on the property, then we really have to look at it.
The permitted principal use is an apartment above street level. So I disagree.
No.
I think the buildings inspector's interpretation is what's at issue. We could hear from the other board members if you like and get a straw poll. But, the building inspector's interpretation was clear here that it has to be above level to be a permitted principal use, above street level.
I think that's the funny thing. If you look in the regulations, in the apartments back in 2004, they wrote a whole new zoning code, and they included in the business district apartments, period. And of course, they talk about second floor. However, they never say it has to be, they talk about second floor. They don't talk about, like Tony said, lower levels on the side of on a hill. It's a permitted principal use, period.
Well, I think we've gotten the issues out.
Right.
I think what we ought to do at this point is take a straw poll of the board as it relates to the denial issued by our building inspector. And from that point, we can work with council on a resolution.
Well, let me interrupt one more time or ask. I mean, we're talking about a use variance versus area variance. All right, and all the other stuff will come after that. But if we're going to be looking at this thing as a use variance or area variance. That's the issue. Yes, because that was the denial.
The issue is the interpretation of the building inspector that this is that a use variance is required
Yes.
For these
That
three
was it.
apartments. That's
Yes.
the issue. Yes.
Yes.
Can we have our screen back, please?
I don't know what that means. Oh, stop sharing. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Pamela.
Is there anyone else on the board that wishes to make any sort of statement as it relates to this, or are we prepared to move forward with a straw poll?
And I think you should determine if anybody else from the public wants to speak to this as well.
Okay, sure. Pam, could you tell us whether or not there's anyone in the queue?
No one has their hand raised at this time, no.
Okay. So the issue before the board is the denial issued by the building inspector as it relates to the applicant, his request for this to be heard as an area variance rather than a use variance. And I will start, and I will say that I'm in support of the building inspector's finding.
I'm going to give you my answer right after I give you a little more information as where I'm coming from, just for the record. I have in front of me the zoning code, 60-410B, Schedule Part 4, Use Regulations. And we refer to number 11, and it says, now this is the approved use of this piece of property in this zone. And it specifically states apartments above street level in a building used for non-residential purposes. So, given that, as much as I would like to see these apartments go forward, because I think it would be great to have them in town like that, but given the way the wording is, and looking at the possibilities of what could happen in the future in something like this, I'm going to have to reluctantly agree with the building inspector. I don't want to agree with the building inspector because I'd like to see this go forward. I like it to be an area variance. I'd like to make it easy for everybody to use their property in a manner to which they would like to use it for the benefit of the town. But because of the way this thing was worded, I can't in all good conscience go against that. So I'm going to reluctantly agree with Tom. And hopefully somebody will get in front of the town board and have the wording clarified and changed to make it easy in the future for everybody else.
Well, thank you, Tony. We have to be careful about being arbitrary about this thing. And I think by reading that, you may have been convinced.
I agree with what Tony just said. I am reluctantly going to have to agree with the interpretation of the building inspector, but hopefully something will come about in the way of a legislative change.
I am going to agree with the determination of the building inspector.
And
Period.
I agree with the determination of the building inspector as well.
So I think with that, we would get a motion to direct council to prepare a written resolution that could be considered at the next meeting, setting forth the board's determination.
I make a motion that this board direct council to draft a resolution that will speak to those issues as they've been raised by the board and heard from the applicant. And we will vote on that resolution at our next meeting.
I'll second.
Cooper in favor?
Jardine in favor, reluctantly.
Bonaparte in favor.
Dubs in favor.
Nolan in favor.
May I ask that you include in your resolution that maybe you as a board make the request to the town board for legislation. And, since you're the ones that feel the best qualified to ask for it, you tell them what you need.
I
Because
think that's a job for the town planner, and I think she's going to be behind that. So that's not for the board to do.
well, maybe you can make a request that the town planner do it. Yeah.
Town planner will do it when the new board takes office. And I will rely on my experiences in working with both this board and the planning board. And the applications that we see coming into the office. So this board has given me their support and will continue to do so. So the request will be made as we move forward with the new administration.
Good.
Thank you, Chuck, and good evening.
Good night.
Okay, Claire is next, 15 Martha Place.
Hi, everyone.
One thing, Mr. Chairman, I think Dorothy Philippou is in the attendees. I'm going to try to bring her in because she's part of this, correct?
She's my wife. Yeah, she's
Okay.
actually upstairs with our daughter, so she won't be able to speak.
Oh, okay. All right, I was going to bring her in, but I'll leave her there.
Shall I begin?
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Patrick Clare. I am filing a zoning variance as both the owner and the architect for 15 Martha Place for a variance to 208A of the Newcastle Town Code to construct a new residence on an unimproved portion of a mapped street, Martha Place. A street upon 3 single-family residences currently exist, and our proposal will include the improvement of the portion of the road to ease access for ourselves and hopefully ease access for neighboring properties and any through traffic that might need to come through there. The proposed house will be in keeping with the size and floor area of the neighborhood and contains a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, an unfinished basement, and the basement will consist of a 2-car garage. The basement will also be built into the hillside to minimize the overall height of the home and to be conscientious of the effect upon neighboring properties. The maximum permitted floor area is 3,886 feet, where proposal is 2,850. So we're complying with the town's FAR calculations, as well as complying with the building and development coverage regulations by approximately 1,000 square feet under each of those, under the maximum allowable areas for each of those. And the property is located on a residential quarter-acre zoning and is slightly oversized for the zoning at 0.39 acres. In terms of the location on the site and how our logic behind where we're placing it, that's dictated by a few site conditions, being that it's a slope site and has some old growth trees. There are a few things that we wanted to consider and make known to the board. We're providing setbacks to meet and exceed the town code requirements. Those setbacks are biased toward the east side of the lot. So we're allowing as much space as possible between our proposed building and the neighboring property on Park Drive, which is slightly downhill, so that we're not kind of over encumbering on the height and too close to their rear yard. We don't want to be too close in proximity. Additionally, the building location and size has been selected to avoid a few large growth trees that I would prefer to maintain and keep on site and preserve as best possible. My preference is to minimize the tree removal where we can. And it's our belief that a lot of the trees or a portion of the trees that we're looking to remove might be invasive species. So we'll have to require an arborist or landscape architect to come through and get a professional opinion on those. And the county approved septic location is also driving a bit of the location of the home in terms of meeting the setback requires for that and the offset from the built property. So that kind of locates our footprint. Access to the site has been specifically placed to the southwest of the lot, which allows ease of grading into the sunken garage at the basement. This entrance is at the low point of the property line that abuts Martha Place, and the home's actual driveway, that is the portion that's built on the property, has been made to meet Martha Place at a 90-degree angle per previous comments from the town's building inspector for a former application by a different owner. And earlier today, and I think yesterday, we received some comments from neighbors, and we just wanted to address those concerns or comments as well as we can right now. One came from 8 Martha Place regarding the naming the portion of the area that we're improving as a proposed driveway. We'd like to clarify it's not our intent to close off any portion of Martha Place, and we would like to maintain through access and improve its drivability. And that's for the entirety of the area leading in front of and leading to 15 Martha Place. As we understand, the road provides access to other homes and is a through passage for deliveries and snow plows. We want to improve how people are able to drive through there, and also make sure that any fire safety equipment or anything that needs to get on site or anywhere through the road can have clear access. I anticipate that these improvements are going to continue beyond where it's noted on the site plan, where it says end of proposed driveway, maybe about 25, 30 feet to the east of where it says end of proposed driveway is where Martha Place currently ends and continues going east. So we'll likely close that gap with new grading, new graveling. And additionally, we got some comments from another neighbor regarding construction noise, debris, environmental impact, their concern over the loss of trees and the natural environment. I want to reiterate my preferences to remove as few trees as possible, and to replant as many trees as manageable for the site. I've started collecting a small arboretum in our backyard right now to bring those trees on site. So we already have about 6 trees that we're ready to transplant. We're also going to be placing a stormwater retention tank to mitigate any runoff to neighboring properties, so we can avoid any flooding issues that may come with the offset of water from new construction. And with regards to construction debris and noise, we're aiming to control that by doing offsite manufacturing of the home, performing a majority of the proposed building's construction in a warehouse and delivering the foundation as a prefabricated concrete paneling system, and also as a prefabricated building components for the majority of the building, which will be placed on site over a matter of days rather than a years-long construction process. So I hope that this addresses a lot of the concerns or any of the concerns that might come up from the neighbors or the zoning board, and you might see this variance applicable application as reasonable, and I'm open to any questions or comments.
So, Mr. Clare, could you just restate for us, is it that you cannot comply with the requirement for frontage, or that you have selected a different location and a different means for other reasons?
Let me pull up our site plan and maybe we can wait. Can you see my screen here?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so currently, and sorry, I'm using a draw on this. This is Park Place or Park Drive here. Right now, Martha Place is an unimproved but drivable gravel road that leads up to here. Right about where this dashed red line is where it's more so improved in terms of the quality of the road. And what we're proposing is to gravel this entire distance up to here, or allowing for a back out and turnaround, and meet our driveway at a 90-degree angle. Honestly, the way that the site plan's drawn makes it seem like we're just going to stop there. I don't have any issues filling in this little portion here with additional gravel and improving that portion of the road.
How about the width of the road?
Yep, sorry, yeah, I did neglect that. We plan to increase it by 2 feet to be a 12-foot wide drive lane. I believe it's currently 10.
Has the fire department or any of the emergency vehicle departments seen this application, and have we gotten comments from them, Tom?
No, sir, not this time.
There is a fire hydrant right here, which is accessible through, I think it's Spring, coming up this way through this currently finished portion of Marketplace.
Maybe at this time, we should hear from both the town planner and town engineer about what the consideration should be for this board.
Bob, if you want to go first.
Yes, thank you, Sabrina. Yes, good evening, Chairman and members of the zoning board. This application came before me a few years back, where I did a complete comprehensive review with the previous applicant. I believe September 7th, 2019. Matter of fact, I have the memo right in front of me, and it looks to me a lot of the items that we have discussed and put in my memo, they may have incorporated. But getting back to the roadway width, this came in many, many years ago. And let me draw on this, because this is what I love to do, draw. Let me pick a color everyone can see. There was a building that came in here years ago, and basically what the previous town engineer recommended is that this road right here should be minimum 16-foot width. At that time, it was discussed with the fire department. I think Tom and I had discussions on it when we met out there with the applicant, probably about last year. Tom, do you recall that?
It was a little bit further back, but a year and
It
a
was
half
20,
ago.
2019, I think.
Yes, yes. But anyway, the roadway width that we recommend and will recommend as a town engineer is minimum 16 feet.
Okay.
So that's fine. And all the other things that I did look at, when it comes in for a building permit, I'll do a complete review on it. But I was very concerned with the stormwater runoff on this. I'll have to prepare a whole pretty much complete SWIP on this to the satisfaction that meets Chapter 108 and DEC to make certain there's no downstream impacts to the properties here and here. You should have the septic right here. And you have to keep that in mind. If you can see, they put it right up here, which is a good spot for it. So those are my two main concerns, really, the access and the movement for the turnaround for any type of vehicles to come back out onto Park Drive, and the stormwater. And of course, the gradient will have to do a steep slopes analysis to make certain it doesn't need a steep slopes permit. But those were the highlights of my review when I reviewed this in 2019. And when they come in for the permit through Tom, I will have another chance to review it and probably put the same comments in that I had previously, if that answers your question.
Can you show us where the fire hydrant is located?
It's here. Oh, sorry. Bob. Questions?
Let me get rid of all my mess.
Bob, is there any reason why the applicant should not be able to achieve the 16-foot width that you described as far as the access road?
I don't see why they wouldn't. They'd have to do a little bit of cutting, and that's pretty much consists of gravel right now and rock. But I don't see why they can't make that 16 feet. I'm trying to keep the runoff to a minimum on that road, which goes down to Park. Right now, in my estimation, based on what I see, my experience, that is gravel and rock. So if the applicant is deciding to put gravel there, I think they would be a nominal increase in any runoff, if at all. But I don't see any reason why they can't grade that out to 16 feet. That's what I would recommend to the zoning board.
Okay, thank you. Sabrina?
I just want to mention it's zoning compliant, with the exception of the 280A, the setbacks are there to meet the zoning requirements. It is considered a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, so you have no obligation to examine the environmental impacts further. I would rely on whether or not the town engineer requires any stormwater or any type of additional analysis. But from a planning perspective, it is it's in compliance with the zoning setbacks.
With regard to the stormwater runoff and percolation, and Bob, your memo from, I think, 2019, 2018, we did receive that memo through a FOIL request, and in our, I think, our initial building permit application, we issued a series of responses from our site engineer, Michael Campbell, who went through and tried to address each one of your previous concerns. I can reissue that again or send it to you if it hasn't come your way yet. But I think we're working towards meeting all of your requests on that memo.
Okay, thank you. I'll be awaiting the plans. Thank you.
Eric, where do we go from here?
So the request is for a variance from the requirement that the proposed house be on a an improved mapped road. That's the only thing that the board is really considering. It is not considering whether to allow the construction of the actual residence itself. I think it would be helpful to address some of the engineer's comments regarding the width of the road and potential drainage. If there are potential concerns regarding drainage on the road itself or safety and access on the road itself, those should be provided to the board so the board can properly analyze them. It might be helpful to the board as well if the applicant could go through the factors for an area variance, which is what this would be considered under. There's a 5-part test that the applicant should address, and that would be helpful as well to see how each of those factors are addressed when the board next considers this.
How do we determine that the proposal is going to be appropriate for emergency vehicle access, ambulance, fire department?
I think Tom and I can meet, if you're asking the question, if I can say something on this. Is that okay, Chairman?
Yes, by all means, Bob.
Sorry. Yes, Tom and I, we can meet with the fire, Marshall Fire Chief, and just make certain they're comfortable with it. But in my experience, we've always done this type of approach. And if you'll notice, if you let me draw on this one more time, that's the whole reason we have this driveway interconnect with this. And that's where we go back another 20 feet past the driveway entrance. So in essence, what we create is pretty much a hammerhead. So a truck, emergency vehicle can pull in, back up on the driveway and pull out face forward. That seems to work pretty good. We always seem to use this type of hammerhead configuration in tight spots such as this, but we will consult with the fire chief as well, just to make certain we're all on the same page.
I will set it up.
I have one question for Bob about the graveling the road. It's a pretty steep downhill section there where this piece of property is. What's going to stabilize that gravel so it doesn't keep being pushed out as cars drive over? I can foresee that gravel being pushed all the way down to the bottom of the hill. Is there any requirements that the town has to stabilize that?
Are you talking about right along here?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's pretty steep right there.
It's very steep here, I will say. That's why if you notice, their drive ends here. This ends here. They'll never be connected because this doesn't meet code right here.
Right.
But this code here, I don't know what it is. Well, it's not that steep when you're out there. I don't know whether the applicant computed that grade. Did you figure out what that grade is between contour to contour?
This grade here, we do have a grading plan. I think the maximum is 15.
I hope it's not 15.
Well, I'm asking this question because I've driven down there and it's pretty rough, and to me it felt kind of steep, and I'm sure after the road is widened and graded a bit, it'll be a little easier to negotiate. But I'm concerned about stabilization of the gravel. If you want to put a gravel bed down, what's going to keep that gravel where we want it to be?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, usually when you're using gravel and you're using any type of material which could slide out due to the friction of itself, the maximum grade you should do is up to maybe 5, 6, 7%. So what we can do, wherever the grade exceeds that amount, we can put an asphalt
Okay.
to satisfy your concern.
Yeah,
So it
yeah,
can
I
be,
would like.
it can be a mix. It could be a mix of asphalt going into asphalt and the gravel.
Good, yeah,
anything.
I do have concerns about that.
But
That will be-
you can also use what they call road mix, which is a mixture of gravel and sand, and I have a home that I use that, and it kind of locks it all together. So I think if you're just using pure gravel, you're prone to slippage. But if you use road mix, which is what, I'm not sure if that's the formal term, but that's what they term it. You'll find that it locks in more.
It's sort of like item, you compact it.
Like
and-
item 4.
Yes, it does
I
get
think
more.
he's talking about item 4.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I
we
have one
can-
question. The fire hydrant, if you make the road 16 feet wide, will that impact the location of the fire hydrant?
The fire hydrant's off the property over here. So this, we won't be continuing up to that portion.
Okay.
The fire department will have to access that in an emergency.
Yeah,
Pam, is
there,
there any- Go ahead.
I was saying there is road access through here up to about, I believe it was, there's a tree that's here and it ends right about there.
A fire engine's not going to be able to take the route that you just proposed.
Also,
Can you get from Spring to Park Drive on Martha Place?
you
Yeah, but
can
what's-
drive through, but as Bob said, there's the portion here that is likely steep beyond code.
If the zoning board is concerned about getting access this way with the fire truck, just thinking out loud, guys, maybe you can require him to put a hydrant here. So the fire truck, when they come here, has access to this hydrant. If that's your concern, if that's what I understand the zoning board's concern is.
Well, no one is going to be able to come up Spring Road and get to Martha Place.
Why not?
Right now, there's no through. You can't get through Spring to Park on Martha.
Yes, you can.
You can.
If you're
Safely?
brave. If you're
brave.
brave.
Okay.
If you're
You
brave
have a
and
tank.
you're not
If
worried
you're
about
brave.
making a shock absorber in your car, you can get through it.
If you have a Hummer, then you could do it.
Exactly.
And that's why I'm saying if you put a hydrant here, then this access route here would be served by that hydrant.
I think
Realizing
that's
that a
good
truck-
idea.
Realizing fire truck can't get from here to here, and it would do no good to park here, so they can put a hydrant here, use that hydrant, and the truck can park here. If that's what the zoning board would like.
Where's the water main in that area? Is there a water main under Martha Place?
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah, it's this W line marked here.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, they would have access to that line. They would just have to put a stub in for the hydrant.
Yeah.
Is that a big deal to put another hydrant in?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's hear from the fire department. Let's see what they have to say.
Pam, is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this application other than the written comments we've received?
No one has their hand raised about this matter at this time.
Okay. So Eric, do we continue the public hearing and wait for the results of the work that's going to be done by the building inspector and building engineer, and
Yes, there would be a motion to continue the public hearing to the next meeting, and then the applicant can address some of the comments, provide, any revised plans and, respond in writing to some of the comments from the public. But you would need, the revised plans in order to grant before you grant the variance showing the change in width, and you'd need the confirmation from the emergency services that what's being proposed is, provides safe access as well in order to consider granting the variance.
Okay, I make that motion that we continue the public hearing, that the applicant consider the comments made by our building engineer, building town planner, and return next month with new plans or revised plans that address these comments. And we will pick up where we've left off.
Can I request, is there a written form of the comments made?
And you can, I believe you could get the recording of the Zoom meeting. We'll have to check with unfortunately, the zoning board secretary was unable to make the meeting tonight, but we can check with her. I think those are.
I will tell you that their minutes will be produced for the meeting, but in the meantime, it may be more expedient for you to go to the Newcastle Media Center. You can watch a replay of this meeting and kind of zoom to this section of the discussion, so you can watch it again.
Okay.
So I think you need a second. You need a second.
I'll second.
Cooper in favor.
Jardine in favor.
Bonaparte in favor.
Dubs in favor.
Nolan in favor.
We'll see you next month, Mr. Claire.
All right, see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll make a motion that the board adopt the meeting minutes for the October 27th meeting.
I'll second.
Cooper in favor.
Jardine in favor.
Bonaparte in favor.
Dubs in favor.
Nolan in favor.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night, all. Have a good night.
Night, everyone.
Bye.